Okay, good evening everyone. It's 6 o'clock. Welcome to this meeting of Development Management Committee. I'll just go through the preliminaries first. This meeting this evening will be live streamed meeting to the public. A recording of the public part of the meeting will be available on the Council's website within 24 hours of the meeting. Would remote participants please use the hands up icon in the Teams to indicate you have a question. Please turn on your camera and microphone when addressing the committee and off when you're not speaking. And then don't think you can do that. And I'll do the emergency evacuation. Find it. Turn left, follow the green emergency signs to the main town hall entrance and proceed to the assembly point in St George's Square. And with that, I'll go straight onto the agenda. Item 1, apologies for absence.
None that more.
Can point out IBC vehicles, Vauxhalls.
I'll come to that. It's just apologies for attendance tonight. Okay, I'll come on to that. Minutes of the 7th of June. I get to sign them during the meeting or at the end, whenever. 3, Section 106 of the Local Government Financials Act.
None that I'm aware of, Chair.
4, any disclosures of interest tonight? Councillor Farouk.
I want to declare my interest on IBC. Item 8. I work for the company.
Okay. That'll be duly recorded.
Chair.
Yeah. Francis.
I have a declaration of interest in item number 4. Vauxhall Homes.
Yeah. Okay. That'll be duly recorded. Yeah.
Yeah. So yours, Councillor Farouk, is a disclosable pecuniary interest because you work for them. So therefore, during item 8, is it? Yeah. You will leave the chamber, and the Vauxhall Homes.
I mean, it's item 7, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry.
And just to confirm, I understand from speaking before, it's because you're a director of
Yes.
Vauxhall Homes, and Vauxhall Homes is the applicant.
Yes.
And therefore, you have an interest because you're a director of that company, and therefore, during that item, you will similarly leave the chamber. Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, similar thing applied to me as well as director of Vauxhall Homes.
So for the same item as well. Okay.
Item 7.
Alia, you had a...
For the last application, don't necessarily have any particular affiliations, but I have been to the Zuri Academy in Britannia State to pray Tarawih prayers during Ramadan. So I don't know if I should need to declare an interest for that. I've only been once.
So you've attended the premises once?
Just once to do a Ramadan
purely
prayer.
As a part of a religious ceremony rather than going to see anyone that owns a property or anything along those lines?
Purely just for religious purposes, yeah.
Understood. That is not an interest in any way, shape or form, in my view.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry? Yes. On the Havelock 18 Havelock Rise, Councillor James Taylor will be speaking as a ward councillor. And just to inform everyone, we are related. But I don't think it needs a personal prejudice interest. Stephen, does it?
Yeah.
I can't help it if we're related, can I?
If I may. So the way interests work when it comes to family members that may be affected by the application. I understand in this case he's purely speaking in his capacity as ward councillor, and as a result, whatever decision we make tonight doesn't affect his well-being in the wider sense of the word. If, for example, he lived next door to the application site or he was a planning agent, then it would affect his well-being for obvious reasons. But if he's purely speaking as a ward councillor, my view is that's not even a personal interest at all, but it's safe to at least mention why.
Yeah,
it's not a personal interest, if you agree with that.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm happy. If there are any other declarations of interest, then you've forgotten about, then you can declare them when the item is called. I don't intend to change the order of business tonight, so we'll start with agenda item 7, the former Parrot Public House, Whippley Ring, Luton. And the two Directors of Foxhall Homes are leaving. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies, I can't be at the committee in person today, but I'm unfortunately unwell with an unseasonal cold. In regard to the circulated update sheet, Bedfordshire Police have now withdrawn their objection to the proposed development.
Abby, can you hear me?
Yes.
Abby,
Yeah, I can.
because I can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
You might want to come back to the item if they can't sort it out.
Yeah. Yeah, for those that are watching on YouTube, we're having a technical difficulty with getting the relevant officer online. So we'll try and get back on as soon as possible.
Go on.
Hello, apologies for that. I don't know what's happening in terms of my connection, but thank you, Chair, and also apologies I can't be at the committee today, but I have a very unseasonal cold. In regard to the circulated update sheet, Bedfordshire Police have now withdrawn their objection to the proposed development based on the removal of the pedestrian access to the footpath, which bounds the northwest of the site, and the introduction of knee rails around the landscaped public amenity area. The officer's recommendation is proposed to be amended as per the update sheet. This will allow for minor material amendments to be made to the scheme if approved under delegated powers and provide a timescale for the completion of the Section 106 agreement. Planning conditions regarding noise have been requested by the Environmental Protection Officer, along with a condition requiring the applicant to enter into a Section 278 agreement with the local highways authority to carry out improvements to the pedestrian access to Market Square. Full details of these additional conditions are cited on the update sheet. I also have a verbal update in regard to an additional planning condition. This is with regard to the management of shared spaces. The condition proposed is as follows. Prior to the first occupation of development hereby permitted, a management plan, including management responsibilities and maintenance schedules for all shared common areas of development hereby permitted, shall be submitted in writing to the LPA for approval. The management plan shall be carried out as approved from first occupation and retained for the lifetime of its development. For reference, the applicant has confirmed that the shared amenity space will be owned and managed by Luton Borough Council's Parks Department. I don't know if we can go on to the first slide, please. The application site is 0.29 hectares in size and is a vacant site following demolition of the public house, The Parrot. The site is located within Farley Hill Neighbourhood Centre in close proximity to Market Square. A public footpath bounds the northwest and northeast of the site, with Whipley Ring to the south. In terms of relevant planning history, planning permission was granted for a medical centre to the northeast of the site in 2018. This permission has not been implemented and the permission is now expired. If we could go on to the next slide, please. And the next slide, that's a view from Whipley Ring. This is the block plan. The application seeks planning permission for the erection of 17 dwellings with an associated access, parking and landscaping. The houses are proposed to be arranged in 3 rows of terraces with a new internal access road. There are 10 2.5-storey, 3-bed market houses proposed to face the pedestrian path to Market Square, 2.5-storey 3-bedroom market dwellings and 3 2-storey affordable dwellings facing the internal access road. Each individual property will have a vehicular parking space, and these will require an electric vehicle charging point under current building regulations legislation. Each individual property has a garden of at least 45 square metres, and cycle parking is provided for 2 cycles within the rear garden sheds. The landscaped areas will form part of the proposals, and these will be open to the public. As cited previously, they will have a low rail around them to prevent parking. The proposed dwellings are, if we go on to the next slide, please. The proposed dwellings are relatively uniform in design, with the 3-bedroom market dwelling having dormers in the roof, and the dwellings are proposed to be finished in brick with grey roof tiles, grey windows and navy blue doors. In terms of the principle of development, there is no recognised need for the use of a public house. The development is not considered to be a development of the site, and it will meet housing needs, providing family housing and affordable housing. Further to this, given the close proximity to Market Square, which has both shops and cafes, the development will reinforce a mixed-use district, which is required under policy LLP 23. The principal housing development is therefore accepted and a proposal compliant with policies LLP 15 and LLP 23. In regard to design, the main issue is with regards to layout, which is, if we could return back to the block plan, please, which is considered contrived as the front elevations of plots 1 to 10 do not face the internal road. However, the site is constrained in that it is surrounded on all sides by footways and roads, so it would not be possible for single dwelling houses with private rear gardens to have an active frontage onto every public route surrounding the site and the internal access road. In this instance, plots 1 to 10 will face the main pedestrian route to Market Square. This is a logical position for the houses to face the main pedestrian route into the local neighbourhood centre. Furthermore, the development will make a significant contribution to housing needs through the provision of family housing. On balance, it is therefore considered that the layout is acceptable and will accord with policy LLP 25 of the local plan. As mentioned previously, the police have removed their objection to the proposal. As a result of the new vehicular access, 3 street trees will need to be removed and separate permission will be required from LBC Parks. However, in planning terms, replacement planting within the site is considered to mitigate for the loss of the trees, along with the fact the arboricultural report advises that the larger tree is in a poor state of health. The design of dwellings is considered acceptable, and the size and amount of meeting space provision potential occupiers satisfactory. The development will not have a detrimental impact on any neighbouring occupiers, and we have received a single letter of objection from a neighbouring resident regarding parking. The Highways Officer has raised no objections to the proposed development, and the level of vehicle and cycle parking provision is considered sufficient and compliant with the local plan. In terms of roadside bin collection, a bin lorry can access and turn around in the internal road, which is proposed to be adopted, to collect individual bins, allowing the proposed dwelling to have bin storage to the rear of the garden. The exact details of bin and recycling storage will need to be submitted prior to first occupation of development for approval by the local planning authority under the recycling and waste condition. The applicant has advised that the development will accord to all relevant energy standards and will detail a sustainable approach to waste, use of local materials and a sustainable approach to construction. In addition, a planning condition is proposed to ensure that development incorporates renewable energy production equipment. The development will meet its own needs in terms of policy LLP 39, and the details of the financial contributions are provided within the planning committee report. The existing site has low ecological value, and through the provision of landscape areas, the development can result in significant improvements to biodiversity. A planning condition is recommended to be added to the permission to this effect. It is recommended that the application is approved subject to the satisfactory completion of a Section 106 agreement to secure the provision of on-site affordable housing, delivery of financial contributions towards education, waste, libraries, museum and open space, a mechanism to secure the delivery of local goods, service and labour, and a legal agreement monitoring fee. Thank you.
Thanks, Abby. Now hang around for any questions by members. Any comments? Then the recommendation is for approval, and I'll move approval. Is that seconded?
Seconded, Chair.
Okay. Vote, Matt, please.
So, 4, Councillor Khan.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Bruce is not here. Councillor Chowdhury.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Farouk. Thank you. Councillor Franks.
4.
Councillor Mead.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Miller.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Raja.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
4. That's unanimous. That's carried. Thank you very much, Abby. Then we'll go on to the second item. I'll call the other two back in, and then if you want to leave now, Farouk, it'll be IBC vehicles, Kimpton Road. Call them in if you see them. Page 60. Sorry. Councillor Franks.
It occurs to me that on those rare occasions when Electrolux put in a planning application, I always declare an interest because they are still contributing to the pension scheme from which I benefit. Somewhere in the myriad of companies that were taken over by Peugeot Citroën is a company that is presumably still contributing to the Vauxhall Motors pension scheme. And I wonder, therefore, whether those who benefit from that scheme should declare an interest.
Yeah, David, I checked it out with you, didn't I, before, about, remember I asked you? Yeah. I checked it out before the application, a while back, wasn't it? And I asked your opinion. I used to receive a Vauxhall pension, but when the factory was taken over, they did not take over the pension scheme, and it was transferred to Aon. So I now got an Aon pension, and I used to be a member of the Recreation Club many years ago, but that was cancelled. And I used to work at Vauxhall Motors many years ago, over 20 years ago. So I think that the decision, Stephen, do you remember? I spoke to you. Yes, please.
So a disclosable pecuniary interest includes pensions. So if it's on your table of disclosable pecuniary interests, then you shouldn't be involved in the item at all.
Yeah.
But you're saying that the pension, it's not. Is it on there or not?
The GM pension scheme was taken over by Aon.
Right. So
I receive a pension from Aon company.
And are they in any way, shape or form part of this application?
No.
Sorry, no.
No, they're an independent,
Right.
a multinational pension company.
Okay, so no, so you don't get a pension from the applicant in this case?
No.
Right, that's not DPI, so I think that's okay.
Stuart?
So it's just occurred to me, my father does also work for IBC, so I'm not sure whether that would be a conflict of interest or interest.
Sorry, Councillor, your father works for Vauxhall?
IBC.
Pardon?
IBC.
IBC, right, okay. Hang on a sec. Sorry, I'm just thinking this through. That's why I do ask. Sometimes I can't just give the advice off the top of my head. I've got to think about it. So your father works for the applicant in this case?
Yeah, IBC, yeah.
Right. What position?
He's a truck driver.
Right. Okay. Okay. All right. So it's not, you've got to hear me out on this. I've got to go through it logically. It's not a disclosable pecuniary interest because it doesn't affect you or your spouse or partner, but it affects your father. Now, there are things called non-registrable personal interests, and that's where an item either directly or indirectly relates to the well-being of that person. So your father is a truck driver, so it's not as if he's involved in the application.
No, he's got absolutely no managerial position.
Yeah, controlling mind kind of thing, right? Thank you for that. So it doesn't, in my view, it doesn't directly relate to his well-being, but does it, a question, indirectly relate to his well-being based on this application? And this application is for additional parking and so on, isn't it? So arguably, it does affect his well-being indirectly because it keeps the company potentially going and so on that site. Probably doesn't affect his pay, but well-being is more than just money, as I said earlier. So I would say that it does. It's a non-registrable personal interest because it indirectly affects the well-being of your father. However, when it comes to indirect personal interest, we then move on to a second part of the test, which is it prejudicial? Would someone looking in, an objective observer, think, well, that interest is so great that you are unable to make a decision purely in the public interest? I refer to it, and you may have seen in Wales, as a SOAP test, selfless, objective, accountable, and in the public interest. Now it's an objective test, so you can't sit there and say, I definitely can make an objective, impartial SOAP decision as such. It's what people looking in would think. Now, you could tell me a lot more if you need to, other than what you said so far, which is your father's a truck driver who's not part of the controlling mind, but he works at this site. If I were that objective observer, I would say that's probably not veering into the prejudicial interest because it's got to be so significant, and emphasise those words, that someone looking in would think, well, no, that interest is so great. Basically, you can't possibly not be biased, even if you think you won't be. So my advice to you is it's a non-registrable personal interest, but it's not prejudicial, which means you can stay and take part in the item if you agree with that advice. Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Can I just say that in the light of what David Francis said, and that in fact Stellantis own the company, which is the people that own Peugeot Citroën. You asked the question, do they still contribute to the pension scheme? Although it's Aon, I don't know. So I'll declare a person of pension interest to be on the safe side. I'll check it out. But, yeah, no, I will do. They may well be contributing to the pension.
I can stay here. Perfect.
Moving on to the report.
Yes.
Okay, so yes, report please. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. This is a full planning application seeking planning permission for the demolition of the existing X-Blocks building, installation of new surface car parking, and installation of a pre-delivery inspection facility with enclosure fencing at the IBC vehicle site off of Kimpton Road in Luton. The application has come to committee as it is a major planning application. There is no update on this application and it is as per the written committee report circulated. So I'll just take you through the slides. The first slide shows the application site outlined in red. And it shows the application site in relation to the wider plant complex, which is outlined in blue. The second slide shows the proposed site layout with the new product parking in place of the demolished X-block, the pre-delivery inspection facility, and it also demonstrates the access to the facility through the plant and the specific access point onto Kimpton Road. The next slide is a little bit small, but it just shows what the pre-delivery inspection facility comprises of, and it's basically just various surfaces, obstacles and braking areas designed to test the vehicles before they leave the plant. And the final slide just gives an example of some of these surfaces and obstacles within the inspection facility. So members will see from paragraph 19 of this item that the main planning considerations relate to the principle of development, the impact on the character and appearance of the area, the impact on neighbouring amenity, transport and parking implications, and other issues relating to flooding and economic development. So firstly, the application site is denoted as being within the Napier Park strategic allocation in the adopted local plan, where policy LLP 8 applies. Policy LLP 8 sets out that the Napier Park site is a brownfield site, 25 hectares, located on the former Vauxhall car plant. It states that the site is allocated for a mixed-use neighbourhood development, including the former B1 business uses, with particular support for B1A offices and B1C light industry, as well as small-scale, affordable B2 accommodation. It continues that provision will be made for between 600 and 1,300 residential units, with a convenience retail-led neighbourhood centre and a hotel. The policy requires that development proposals should be accompanied by a master plan, and it also sets out the site-specific requirements for new development in this area. So in planning policy terms, the proposal is therefore something of an anomaly, as it doesn't support the strategic allocation of Napier Park. However, the supporting text to policy LLP8 does set out that the application site may be reacquired by GM Vauxhall, as in paragraph 4.64, it states that the reacquisition of a 7.58 hectare plot by GM Vauxhall for operational reasons and its implications for delivering B-class accommodation will be kept under review and will be the subject of the early plan review. The site history section of the committee report sets out this is exactly what has happened. Therefore, in assessing if this proposal is acceptable in principle, a key consideration is if the proposal would prejudice the uses allocated in policy LLP8 from coming forward. The committee report before members considers this and argues that the proposal would not preclude much of the allocated uses of policy LLP8 coming forward, and that more weight should in fact be attached to the importance of supporting and safeguarding existing operations at this important manufacturing site within the town, where there is a park conflict with policy LLP8. Given this assessment, it is considered that the proposal is acceptable in principle. With regard to the impact of the proposal on the character and appearance of the area, the design and layout of the proposal would be necessarily functional and would not be out of place set amongst the industrial nature of the site and the significant amount of product parking to the north and south of the pre-delivery inspection facility. The impact of the proposal on the character and appearance of the area would therefore be fairly neutral, although with a minor general visual improvement of the site by the removal of paraphernalia on the site and the demolition of the utilitarian X-block building. Accordingly, the impact of the proposal on the character and appearance of the area would be acceptable in accordance with policy LLP 25 of the local plan. In relation to the impact of the scheme on heritage assets, the proposal would have no discernible impact on the Grade 2 listed Hart House or its setting. In relation to the impact on neighbouring amenity, the report sets out that the proposal would have a low impact and would not adversely affect residential amenity with the imposition of relevant conditions relating to construction, lighting and noise. In relation to access, highway and parking implications, there is considered to be no issue with the access point onto Kimpton Road, given that this is a long-established existing access point into the manufacturing site. Additionally, the reasoning behind the current planning application and the overall project, the current application forms phase 2 of the overall project, is to improve efficiencies in operation and an amalgamation of product and staff parking on underutilised land within the plant complex. Accordingly, the proposals would result in a reduction in movement of vehicles, as product vehicles would be required to travel lesser distances to be tested, and staff could park on site as opposed to various locations within the surrounding area. The technical note accompanying the planning application reflects upon these improved transport efficiencies and confirms that there would be no uplift in trip generation, as all movements would be internalised within the site boundary. The technical note has been accepted by the Highway Authority. In relation to parking, the rationalisation of both staff parking and product parking within the site is welcomed, as is the overall reduction in parking provision across the site, which would reduce from 2,407 spaces across the site to 2,072, and this is for both employee and product parking. A travel plan is to be required by condition to encourage active travel to the site and to implement a programme of electric vehicle charging across the site. Coupled with a condition for cycle parking on site, these measures would encourage public transport and active travel to the site, and when the imposition of such conditions, the transport and parking elements of the application are considered to be acceptable. In relation to flooding, the proposed development site is situated in flood zone 1, which is the lowest category of flood risk. The proposal will not therefore present any flood risk, and the lead local flood authority are agreeable to the proposal subject to conditions relating to infiltration and sustainable drainage measures. And finally, it's recognised that there would be sustainability benefits of the proposal in relation to minimising vehicle movements on the site and providing a bespoke inspection facility on site, resulting in manufacturing and testing all taking place within the same site. Additionally, the proposal can be a catalyst to promote active travel to the site and EV charging on the site through the adoption of the travel plan. Finally, the proposal would support the continued manufacturing use of the wider IBC vehicle site, who are an important employer in the town. Specific benefits of the construction of the proposal can also be captured by the skills, employment and training strategy to be attached to any grant of plan permission in a Section 106 legal agreement. So, in conclusion, the report demonstrates that the proposal is acceptable in principle. Whilst the application site is within the Napier Park strategic allocation in the local plan, it does not preclude the majority of the uses allocated in this designation from coming forward. Whilst there is a park conflict with the provision of small-scale affordable B2 accommodation, in this instance greater weight is attached to the support this proposal would bring to the existing manufacturing use and the key employer within the borough, and which is considered to outweigh this park conflict with policy LLP 8. Additionally, through the consideration of the various sections of the report, it has been demonstrated that the proposal would have an acceptable impact on the character and appearance of the area. It would have an acceptable impact on neighbouring amenity, subject to appropriate conditions, and the highway's impact, as well as the parking levels, are acceptable. Finally, there would be sustainability benefits arising from the proposal, and it would support the continued manufacturing use of the wider IBC vehicle site. For these reasons, it is considered that the development comprises an acceptable and sustainable form of development, and on this basis, it is recommended that planning permission is granted, subject to the conditions as set out in the committee report and the completion of a Section 106 agreement as per the heads of terms in your report. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Clive. Do members have any questions? Any comments? Oh, Councillor Franks.
Yeah, thank you. I've been sitting here wondering whether I ought to be happy to put my hand up and vote for a test track right next to a relatively new residential development, particularly since it's going to be operating 24 hours a day. The perceived noise decibel figures in condition 9 mean nothing to me. Could someone give us some explanation of what those figures actually mean?
Yeah, through you, Chair, I can answer that. So noise testing was undertaken by the applicant. We've got 2 noise surveys. One was taken in 2020 and then updated again in 2022. So basically, they've set out what the noise levels, the ambient noise levels in the area are, and it's demonstrated because of the nature of this operation, its distance to the nearest residential property, and also the significant height difference between this site and the neighbouring site, that noise from this would be below that ambient noise level. So effectively wouldn't cause an issue.
And were these measurements taken in the middle of the night as well?
The noise measuring was, I think it's undertaken during the day, but it's it does factor in nighttime noise levels. Obviously, the ambient noise level at nighttime is lower. But even with that lower noise level, the noise levels from this are still below that ambient noise level at nighttime.
Given that there's going to be aircraft noise as well.
Yeah, all taken into account in the noise survey.
Thank you. Any more questions? Any comments? Okay, so the application is recommended for approval. Do I have someone to second that?
Seconded, Chair.
Yes, I'm recommending, yeah. Do we take a vote?
Okay. Councillor Khan.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Ajisola.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Chowdhury.
For.
Councillor Franks.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Mead. For. Thank you. Councillor Miller.
For.
Councillor Raja.
For.
And Councillor Steer.
For.
It's approved, Chair.
Thank you. That's approved. Just going to call back in the members that had to go out.
Next item on the agenda is 18 Havelock Rise, page 81 to 97.
Good evening, Chair members. This application relates to 18 Havelock Rise. This application is subject to a written update in responding to a further comments received from a resident in response to the committee report published. 13 neighbours were notified. A site notice was displayed on the scheme. 6 letters of representation received objecting to the scheme. Summary of the comments outlined in Appendix 3 of the report. Next slide. The application site is a detached property located on the turning head of the cul-de-sac, which consists of a mixture of detached, semi-detached and purpose-built flats of varying scale and design. Next slide. The proposal is seeking to convert and change the use of the existing property into 3 flats, one bedroom flat and two 3-bedroom flats, one on each floor, and installing, next elevation please, installing a rear balcony, railings and alterations to some fenestration details as shown on the proposed elevations. The material considerations relate to the principle of the development. As set out in the report, whilst the proposal would result in the loss of an existing 4-bedroom property for which there is recognised local need, this loss would be replaced by 2 3-bedroom units for which there is greater identified need within the borough. Therefore, the principle of the development is considered acceptable as it conforms to the objectives of policy LLP 15 in that it provides much needed family dwellings without representing an over-intensive form of development of the site. It also makes efficient use of the land. In terms of design and impact on the character and appearance of the area, the proposed external alterations involving changes to the fenestration details and installation of the rear balcony and railings do not detract from the appearance of the existing dwelling or the surrounding area. There are already a number of existing balconies on the neighbouring properties. In terms of the impact on the character of the area, despite the concerns raised by local residents, it's considered that the proposed conversion would not have a significant or harmful impact, having regard to the existing diversity of residential accommodation found within the close. There's already an existing flatted development in Clive Court and some HMOs located within the close that already generate higher level of activity in terms of comings and goings than those that are associated with a single family close, which means that the proposal does not introduce an incongruous use. With regard to the effect on the amenities of the adjoining occupiers, as set out in the report, no adverse effect anticipated on the visual amenities of the adjoining occupiers from the external alterations. However, local residents have expressed concerns that the increased number of units on the site will result in a greater number of people residing at the property, resulting in over-intensification of the use of the site. Whilst there may be additional number of units on the site, as mentioned in the update, owing to the overall floor area within the development remaining the same as the original property, and that the proposed accommodation meets the nationally described space standards, creates a good quality of residential accommodation that is not over-intensive. In addition, as mentioned previously, the close already experiences greater level of comings and goings due to the existing flatted developments within the close. Overall, it is considered that the development does not have a detrimental effect on the amenities of the adjoining occupiers. In terms of the living environment created for future occupiers, as discussed in the report, owing to the general layout of the scheme, it creates an acceptable living environment for the future occupiers of the flats. On the issue of parking, the impact of the development on the parking situation in the close has raised considerable objection from local residents on the grounds that the development will lead to the loss of the existing parking on the site and increase the demand for the already limited on-street parking within the close. As set out in both the original report and the update, the proposal will not lead to the loss of the existing parking, as both the existing garage and the driveway in front are of insufficient size to accommodate a modern vehicle, which means that the existing property, which is a 4-bedroom property that would require 3 parking spaces in accordance with the current adopted parking standards, currently has no off-street parking. In terms of the proposed parking, as set out in the report, owing to the accessible location of the site within walking distance of the train, bus station, Hightown District Centre and the town centre, the level of parking required would be the same as that of the existing property, which means that the demand for the off-street parking would not be significantly different from the existing situation on the site, making it difficult to justify a refusal based on parking. To conclude, the development provides much needed family housing without harming the character of the appearance of the surrounding area or the amenities of the adjoining occupiers. And on that basis, the conditional approval is recommended. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Nyla. I'll ask the Justin Doherty, the objector, to speak first, then James Taylor, and then also the right to speak has been exercised by the applicant, who will follow you. Okay? So the rules are you've got up to 5 minutes to speak, and I'll give you a minute when you.
Thank you. I've got a time here. I'm here to speak on behalf of a group of residents on Havelock Rise and the adjoining Havelock Road. I'm speaking on behalf of those with me up there and those absent. I do live on the road. We'd like planning permission refused for the following reasons. 1, overdevelopment. 2, loss of a family home. 3, non-existent parking allocation. There's also the issue of a monopoly of property on the road, with the applicant owning 2 HMOs but does not live in the area to see the impact that these developments have had on this road. over the last years. As a way to address the points above, I'd like to refer mainly to the planning officer's report, and as mentioned, there was another resident complaint about that report, and which had some inaccuracies and misinformation that we didn't want to, we felt would not lead to a fair appraisal. So paragraph 23 states that reducing the number of proposed flats on the site from the original 4 developments to 3 helps reduce comings and goings. Well, actually, this is misleading because the number of bedrooms has actually now increased. It's increased from 6 to 7, so consequently there must be more comings and goings and potential residents and vehicles and whatnot. Paragraph 35 in relation to the local Luton plan as well, the 2011 to 31 Luton plan, Appendix 2 item C3 states that 3-bedroom conversion requires at least 5 parking spaces or 3 to 5 parking spaces. 0 parking is allocated for this development. There is currently 1 short driveway space, potentially 2 if not built over with a bike rack and a lowered curb, but the report does not state where any of the other 4 cars can be parked. Clearly, this development contravenes the council's own policy on parking. Introducing more cars will lead to parking wars with anything up to 14 residents in 7 bedrooms. It is unbelievable that there will be only 1 or 2 more cars added to this street. It also states that the accessible location of the site close to the train and bus station makes this an argument. Well, number 18 has no close link to public transport hubs, is a 10-15 minute walk at pace, and it's very difficult to believe that 3 families moving into these residences won't already have cars with them. And will all residents be able to or want to walk or catch a train or bus to do family shopping, especially up one of the steepest hills in Luton? The updated report states parking would not be materially different from that of the original dwelling. This is just simply not true. In 40 years, there's rarely been more than 2 cars associated with number 18, 1 parking in front of the garage, and there could be up to 5 or 6 cars with this development. So that is misleading and incorrect. And to remain on the parking issue, which is really the core issue here, we have no objection to developments per se on the street. We would rather a house be occupied. There are some images here which are sort of very difficult to get them round to you all. These are images taken over the last 6 months at various times of day, and you can see there's not a space in sight for parking. We have people park on our road from the neighbouring streets because of parking restrictions. So now, with new parking restrictions in Hightown, which are going to encompass Wensleydale, another adjoining street, it means that there'll be more demand on the sort of free spaces on Havelock Rise. The top 6 houses are family houses, have always been, and at present there are 2 houses with pensioners, 3 houses with young families, and the empty number 18. Only one of these has a full-size driveway. The HMOs in Clive Court are further down the rise, and they have some off-street parking, but Clive Court allocates 1 space per family, which is a sort of 1970s average. We know that doesn't hold true to now. Paragraph 15 accepts the loss of the family home, which is an identified need in this area, but it counter-argues that 3-bedroom properties are a greater need. We accept this, they are. But the additional 1-bedroom flat, for which the report confirms there is no identified need, and anyone who lives in Luton knows how oversaturated we are with 1-bedroom flats, that's a very hard aspect of this plan to argue. Without this, within the design, the garage could remain active. I have exactly the same size garage and I park a fairly large Saab in it. Or a parked carport or other design enablings that this 1-bedroom flat could then be changed into. As a note, under old ownership of this property, the previous property adjoining was sold, which compromised any future development anyway. So there would have been plenty parking had it not been sold for redevelopment many years ago. The idea that it doesn't raise any major parking or highway restrictions is just simply not true. It's woefully underestimated by the officer. We live on the street, we know the street night and day, and anyone who has ever visited Hightown understands that parking is a big issue. I have been told by the applicants, forget about parking. I'm afraid I cannot forget about parking. I live there, it is a daily problem. In summary, we believe the planning should be refused and reworked, and the officer's report should be revised with careful attention to the facts above. A reminder that it's required to provide spaces, it provides none. Not only that, removes parking opportunities that currently exist in the design. And we understand the need for housing. We would love an occupied property, welcome a realistic and sympathetic application that reflects the needs of the street and community and addresses the practical, logistical and safety concerns that this raises that are individual to Havelock Rise. I'd love any of you to see these photographs later on. Thank you very much. I went over.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions by members to the objector? Francis?
The objectors just mentioned parking on Wensleydale, which is obviously where I live. I don't street park, I have a private parking space. So I don't think I would have an interest in that.
Yes, please. Just to clarify, we'll get some legal advice.
Okay, thank you. That's okay.
You'd like to be told a day in advance.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chair, it just didn't occur to me that it was an issue.
So there is, in your opinion, there is parking in your road as a result of displacement from this road, this development?
Yes, but to be clear, I don't street park. I have a private parking
So it doesn't
space.
affect you.
It doesn't affect my parking.
And may I ask how far away do you live roughly from the application site? Can you see it?
No.
Right. I don't regard that as an interest. But too far away for it to be personally prejudicial.
Yeah, I just want to keep you busy.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Any other questions? Oh, Alia.
Thank you, Chair. In the application, it's mentioned that this development will bring much-needed family housing. What guarantee is there that this will go to families and not just to single people, and will not go to like essentially young professionals or students? Is there any guarantee of that? No, nothing to the objector.
The layout and the indicates that there will be 3-bed, 4-person family units. So we can only go by what's there to indicate that it will be used as family units. Obviously, we can't, as planning, control who will be the final occupiers of the premises. But on the basis of what's been submitted to us, it would indicate that is family. Those 2 units will be for family use.
Thanks, Nola.
Okay. James, as ward councillor, for speaking against this application.
Thank you, Chair.
You've only got 5 minutes as well.
Okay, that's great.
We changed the rules last year.
I thought I was unlimited. They obviously shut me up. I thank members for their time hearing my objections today, and I would urge members to reject the officer's recommendation and not to approve the loss of yet another family home in Hightown. I understand the reports that there is an identified need for 3-bedroom flats, but it is much easier, and I can point to numerous developments in Hightown where there are plenty of 3-bedroom flats coming online. There are very few 4-bedroom homes. The whole ward has become saturated by HMOs and subdivided properties. This has had a detrimental effect on the area and negatively impacts on its character. If you doubt this, I would invite you on a walk of Hightown or to have a look at my inbox on a regular basis. This application would further exacerbate the problem and should be rejected. I did have a note here to write about parking, but I don't think I can do a better job of what than Justin's presented already. So I'm happy for his objections to stand there. But I do feel it would be incongruous as well. I think this is very clearly sort of a street with its own character, with its own personality, and subdividing its HMO into, sorry, I won't say HMO because it's not, into these flats would negatively impact on the character of that street. And I think Councillor O'Leary is right to raise the issue of we have no assurances that these would be family homes. These could easily be single professionals. And although the layout internally may be planned one way, it can be another way. We have no way of enforcing that. People are free to change the inside of their properties as they see fit. So therefore, I think that would be an over-intensive use of our site and would also negatively impact on the heritage of the area. So once again, I would urge members to reject the officer recommendations and say no to this development. Thank you.
Any questions, Zabatunde, to James?
Yeah, question to my fellow honourable councillor. You're a councillor for Hightown, and I believe you walk around Hightown properly. So you've mentioned heritage of the area. The area is going to get saturated. going to affect its character. Can you explain further what are the characters, what are these heritages?
So if you've been to some of the roads around Hightown, there was a lot of these sort of very nice sort of old Victorianish sort of buildings. Many of them are now, they have been subdivided into HMOs, they've been turned into flats. And it was one of the things I picked up when talking to residents, that they didn't want to see any more things like this. They felt that Hightown was losing some of that family character. It was just becoming a transitory dormitory area for people, for young professionals. I understand that they need somewhere to live as well, but by subdividing these properties, and we've seen it in Southwold as well, I think, where subdividing some of these properties, that it loses its character and they become transitory, and it's negatively impacts because it increases crime rates, it increases transit, it increases traffic, it increases fly tipping. So I think overall it'd be a negative impact, and I would urge members to take that into consideration as a planning consideration. Thank you.
Just before I let you go, the first objector mentioned something that the council, that the parking is against the council policy. What do you think about that?
I don't think I could do it much more justice than Justin put in, but yes, I think it's very clear that there is a parking issue on this road. It does sit out just outside the enforced parking zone, so there are some people that do park on there already. But I think this development has the potential to exacerbate that problem and make it worse, because as I say, if a family is very likely to come with, if it is a family, they're very likely to come with their own car, as for the reasons Justin pointed out, for local shopping, to move around, to go to schools, to take them to football training, or every other thing that a family does. But also, there's no guarantee. It could be a family, it could be three individuals with three individual cars, and it will just exacerbate and make that problem on that street worse. As you say, if it's a single household, yes, there may be more than one car, but Justin's pointed out he feels that there is 2 spaces there already. If this development is approved, we'll lose one of those spaces, and I simply don't see it as credible that it can be seen that because there is a train station 15 minutes away, that negates all the other things. You can't get a train to swimming lessons, for example, if it was a family.
Okay, there have been no further questions. Thank you very much, James. And now I'll ask the applicant. I'm presuming you're already in the seat. It's Spyros Michaelides. Have I got it right?
Thanks, Chair. I'm the agent.
The agent for the applicant. Okay.
Yeah.
And you've heard what has been said tonight, so I don't know if you wish to respond to that, but then you're entitled to say what you like in your 5 minutes. Okay.
As a background, I'm the agent, and I've been a chartered surveyor for about 10 years, working primarily in the residential sector. And residential occupation, as we all know, is need-driven. And I can assure you, the one thing I've learned in the last 10 years, those needs are changing. And there might have been that need for cars in the past, and it was a fundamental thing. But what is fundamental now, that we provide family units? There is not enough of them. The applicant is looking to have an additional family unit there, so there'll be 2, and a garden flat, a 1-bedroom garden flat, which is oversized. It's around the size of a 2-bedroom flat. All flats have outside space. They will also share a large communal garden to the rear. And I think the key things I would like everyone to take in the room and the public is, on balance, the added value to bringing this house that's not just unmodernized, it's not habitable, back to sustainable recycling use. So economically, it's good for the council. Socially, it's good. It's the need is for family units, as I said, so socially it's good, and it's sustainable. Throughout the years, I've seen these low-density recycled buildings becoming very positive things for any road. The objectors have made it quite clear that they have concerns around using each of these flats as HMOs, but I think that's a judgment that you can't really use. You could say that for any scheme. 2 cases before, you had about 20 houses there. You could argue they could all be HMOs. the need is not for HMOs. The need and what the applicant is trying to produce is family units. And everyone in this room needs to consider what is the most important thing that's needed here. We are in an economic crisis. These are sustainable. They are decent sized units, and whether they're going to be on the open market for sale or for rent, it's irrelevant. They are more affordable. So all I ask is for everyone to consider what is being produced here in a sustainable fashion as well, to bring a building that's dilapidated back to use. And just to add, what I mentioned in my design access statement is this building was not marketed as a family unit. It's over 2,000 square feet. It's dilapidated. You're talking about considerable cost for a single family to bring this back to life. And it's a really good way to bring a building like this back to existence on a social aspect. So that's what I've got to say. It's quite clear my points are about what is needed here and not what parking is relevant. And what I would say is that parking space is too small for a modern car, and there is no off-street parking for a modern car, and there's no dropped curb. And I just think as a council, you've got to be proactive and look forward and see on balance what's important here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions by members to the applicant's agent? Yeah, Councillor Miller.
Sorry, you say currently there isn't a dropped curb. I'm just looking on Google at the moment. It seems very much like there is a dropped curb here, and there's also a car parked there.
It's not a dropped curb.
They're not dropped curb?
No.
Yeah, can we just,
Sure.
Stephen, you want to say something about Google?
Yeah, if I may. Firstly, people who are in the virtual world can't see it. Secondly, I know we all look at Google, but you can't 100% categorically rely on it because it might be 4 years old, it might be 10 years old, it might be 2 weeks old. So that's the problem with Google, unless you'll refer to it by the officers. Secondly, once you've got those photos, the right to speak procedure does refer to photos can only be circulated, can be circulated, but only if they're uploaded and sent to the Democratic Services in the first place, so they can again be put up for the people that are online. That makes sense. Apologies. That's all right. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Chair. Sunny Sahadran, Head of Planning. Question for the applicant. In your address, you mentioned that the property is in a dilapidated state. How long has it been like that?
Top of my head, 2 years possibly, maybe 3. But we did go through 2 years of the pandemic, so it made everything a bit more difficult. But yeah, it's been a while. But in terms of being, that's since the purchase, I think. But in terms of being dilapidated, I don't know. But all I know is if you look at the agency particulars, when it was marketed to investors and developers. It was not marketed as a single occupation. And that is quite telling the pool of buyers that they're looking to attract on this site.
Okay, any further questions?
I have a point of clarification on this, Chair.
Clarification only.
Is dilapidation and marketed material and access
Can you put your microphone?
Sorry, is dilapidation a planning consideration, and is what a property was marketed as, is that a planning consideration?
In response, Councillor, the period of time a property or a site has remained vacant is a material planning consideration, and the fact it might have been marketed for the lawful use and hasn't attracted any takers is also a material planning consideration.
Okay. No further Councillor Miller again.
Sorry, just a very quick clarification for yourself. The state of dilapidation, how long has that been going on, and how long has the current owner owned it?
I wish I could give you some clarity because I'm actually not sure how long it's been dilapidated, but I've walked through the site several times, and there's nothing in there that's been put in for at least 10 years. We're talking rot, various penetrating damp issues, plaster off the wall. It's not habitable. And the owner, as I said, the current owner, I think, has owned it for about 3 years. So trying to find a solution to recycle the building.
No further questions to the applicant, the agent of the applicant. Then you can stand down now. Questions by members to the planning officer. Abatunde.
I've asked this before. I'm just going to ask the officer now. Do you agree with the first objector that the parking contravenes the council policy on parking?
Basically, the adopted parking standards are there for guidelines. So they say normally they're maximum standards, first of all, to start off with, not minimum. So they're a guide there for us to assess the scheme, whether it's going to have potentially any parking implications. As set out in the report, the existing property is a 4-bedroom property, which under the current maximum parking standards will require 3 parking spaces, which it currently doesn't have any that accord with our standards. So we have set standards. They have to be certain length, certain sizes for it to be considered a parking space. So on the basis of those standards, the site has no off-street parking at the moment. So that's the starting point. In terms of the development, again, the maximum parking standards state that it should be 5 parking spaces. However, the parking standards then go on to state that it depends on the accessibility of the location and whether these maximum standards apply or not. In this case, the site is close to the train station, bus station, and town centre, and we will regard it in planning terms as being an accessible location. Therefore, in this case, as I've set out in my report, we would consider a minimum of 3 parking spaces. But the fact is the existing property needs 3 parking spaces. The proposed development needs 3 parking spaces. The site can't accommodate 3 parking spaces. If we were to refuse this on parking grounds and go on appeal, we will not be supported by the planning inspector. I've done enough appeals over the last 20 years to know that the planning inspector does not support on parking grounds, especially given that there is no material change on the parking situation on the site. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, so if I get you right, that means it's just for guiding.
Yeah.
That's what
It's therefore as an indicator. So when we're looking at schemes, we should look at parking standards and see whether they're, but then we do have that discretion of depending on the location of the site.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I mean, on that, I think it's part of a marketing issue. If you're looking to rent or buy a 3-bedroom property and there's no parking, then that would be your decision to make, whether you wish to rent or to buy. The fact that it doesn't have any parking provision. So it's not really a planning issue, but I think it's more of a marketing thing. Yep.
Through you, Chair, it's also relevant to your decision making that this particular road opted out of the residential parking zone in the surrounding areas. So whilst the other streets wanted a residential parking zone, this particular road historically has opted out and hasn't applied to be included in any future residential parking zone. So it's worth noting that before you make your decision.
Okay, any further questions? Any comments? Councillor Franks.
Yeah, just two things to say, and I'm sorry, they both relate to parking, and I appreciate it may not be a material planning consideration at the end of the day, but it's relevant to me. First of all, over the years since this house was built, private cars have got much, much bigger, and garages haven't. It's just a fact of life. So a lot of houses that were built with garages all this time ago now have garages that are simply not usable as garages, because even if you can get the car in, you probably can't get out of it. The other is, I think I wanted to relay a personal experience. About 2, maybe 3 weeks ago, I drove up Havelock Rise to visit somebody. First thing, of course, I couldn't find anywhere to park. And this is mid-morning, I don't know, 10:30 in the morning on a weekday, when you would expect most people, if they are employed, would have gone to work. But so first of all, could I find somewhere to park anywhere near the house I was going to visit? No, I couldn't. Second thing, I couldn't even find an opportunity to turn the car around, because there were no spaces that you could back into or whatever. So I had to reverse the whole length of the road and back into Havelock Road. So there's no question that there is a parking issue here. Now, whether it's a relevant planning consideration is a different issue, but there is without any question a parking problem.
Are there any other comments? Okay, there being no more further questions or comments, then we'll move to the vote. And the officer's recommendation is to approve, subject to the conditions. So I'll move approval. Is that seconded? No seconder. And would somebody like to move some? Sorry?
Seconded.
Oh, you seconded. Rumi Chowdhury seconded. So we'll go to the vote then, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Khan?
Against.
Councillor Ajisola?
For.
Councillor Chowdhury?
For.
Councillor Farouk? Councillor Franks?
For.
Councillor Mead?
For.
Councillor Miller?
Against.
Councillor Raja?
For.
Councillor Steer?
For.
Councillor Taylor?
For.
That's carried, Chair, one against.
That's carried, and planning permission has been granted, subject to the conditions. Thank you very much. Right, we go on to the last one tonight, which is number 24 Crawley Green Road. Gemma, we've got you in person.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
I think we should let everybody leave first. Just
Okay.
give it a minute or so, because some obviously want to come in and some are leaving. Are you speaking? No, it's not a public meeting. It's a meeting of Development Control Committee, Development Management Committee, rather. Yeah, there's somebody down to speak. Sarah Nunn. Yeah, she can come. Where is she? She can come down. Oh, she's online. Sorry, online. Yeah. No, you're okay to stay where you are. No need to come down. Okay, Gemma.
Okay. The application seeks to change the use from offices to an education centre with 69 square metres retained of office space and replacement windows. This is a resubmitted application. This is subject to an update report, which is provided to members just to provide some further clarifications. There's some relevant planning history, including the previously refused scheme for the change of use of Office 2 Education Centre with replacement windows. The applicant then sought pre-app advice and was advised to appeal the first decision. A pre-app meeting was then requested and the applicant was told that the loss of a Category A employment land would be resisted. Departure from the development plan is only considered in significant circumstances in which there are material considerations which outweigh the need identified in the development plan. The application has received 26 letters of support. Next slide, please. The application site comprises a large L-shaped building with associated parking located on Crawley Green Road. The site shares its access with the neighbouring business site. The site is located within a Category A employment area, therefore the surrounding area is mainly characterised by commercial employment uses. The Luton and Dunstable busway adjoins the north-eastern boundary of the site. The site was purchased by the applicant in July 2021 without seeking any planning advice in respect to the intended use. The site would become the Zuri Trust headquarters and provide religious education community facility. The education centre would be open between 8 a.m. and 8:30 p.m. Monday to Friday and 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturdays and Sundays, closed on bank holidays. The weekday classes would take place between 4:30 and 8:30, aimed at children between the ages of 5 and 16, as well as weekend training courses. The applicant intends to retain 69 square metres of office space, which would equate to 3 offices. The planning statement suggested that 3 local businesses confirmed their interest. The site has 26 parking spaces and 14 cycle spaces. Next slide, please. The site is located within a Category A employment land. Given the importance of such employment sites, Category A sites are protected by LLP 13 and LLP 14 of the Luton Local Plan. Category A employment sites are safeguarded to retain and deliver jobs for the borough, supporting economic growth and generating business and industry within the town. The change of use or loss of employment size, especially Category A, will be resisted, as this would be seen as detrimental to the economic capabilities of the town, as well as a departure from the development plan. Therefore, based on the foregoing, the principle of the change of use is unacceptable, and this was the previous reason for refusal of the last application. This resubmitted scheme now includes the retention of some office space for rent, and the planning application states that 3 local businesses have confirmed interest. This statement shows there's a clear need for offices within a business use for the Category A employment area. This argument runs counter to the applicant's main argument seeking the change of use. The agent has stated that the charity has been reliant on hired venues, which are not suitable due to the necessary facilities for washing and ritual cleanliness. A list of discounted sites was requested, however, the agent confirmed that no other sites were available. Further, the planning statement indicates that the closest Muslim education facility available in Luton is the Berry Park Educational Institute, approximately 1.3 miles away from the site. Given the good transport links in the area and the close proximity to the town centre, a distance of 1.3 miles is not considered a significant distance when considering the planning balance and the loss of employment land. With regard to the access, Highways have provided additional comments with regard to the pedestrian access of the site and notes that the existing tarmac path adjacent to the building is inadequate due to its width. It's blocked by air conditioning units and fire escapes. This would need to be addressed through a design for pedestrian access report before the site could be used for educational purposes. The agent has responded saying they think that this condition is unreasonable. Further, the access is shared by the neighbouring business, and the local planning authority has concerns for the need for the proper pedestrian access would potentially impact on this neighbouring commercial business. Further, there could be conflict with children and young people using the shared access alongside commercial vehicles. Therefore, taking everything into consideration, the change of use to an education facility in the area does not outweigh the need to protect Category A employment land as designated in the local plan. Overall, when considering the planning balance, these planning considerations do not outweigh or justify the departure of the development plan. Therefore, this resubmitted scheme does not overcome the previous reason for refusal. The recommendation remains refusal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And we've got Sarah Nunn acting as a representative of the applicants. Can you hear me?
Hello, yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, just what we didn't want. We've got. Can you see me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Ah, you can hear me. Can you hear me? Put your hand up if you can hear me.
Yep.
I think she put a hand up. Well, I can't hear you.
Explain what's going to happen.
Yeah, we can't hear you. We can see you, but not hear you.
Okay.
So Sunny's going to give you a call.
Okay, that's fine.
Can you just check your laptop that you've got the sound on?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. We're gonna call you and put you on.
Okay, that's fine.
Hi, Sarah.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm going to put you on speakerphone and then you can address the committee members. Okay?
We can't hear her.
Yes, keep your camera on. Yes. Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Can now.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, Chair, and good evening, everyone.
You've got up to 5 minutes. Up to 5 minutes to speak. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. Sorry that I'm not there in person, but my name is Sarah Nunn, and I'm from DLP Planning, an agent for this application. Our client, Zuri Trust, is an established local charity who've been serving the local Muslim community for more than 10 years, providing religious education, mentoring, charity support, as well as youth and family activities. They've been searching for a suitable premise to act as their headquarters for many years and currently have no permanent home. And they're relying on hire venues which are generally not fit for purpose and not always readily available. The 24 Crawley Green Road site has been identified by the Trust as a safe and suitable location to provide much needed religious education and charitable services to the local community. And the proposal, as noted by the case officer, is retained office spaces and education facilities alongside the charity operations. So I'd like to draw your attention to the following 4 points. Firstly, the recommended refusal is based on the principle of the site's location and employment area. But to start with, it's encouraging to note that there have been no technical objections from statutory consultees, such as noise pollution, traffic control or parking, or any significant objections from the local community. And in fact, the application received numbers of letters of support. And therefore, the principal concern relates to the site's employment designation, which seeks to protect Class B users. However, it should be noted that Luton's nature of employment has changed over the years, from car manufacturing industries to retail and offices. And since COVID, there's been a huge reduction in the need for offices as businesses move to more flexible working arrangements. And in fact, the previous occupier, which was the data centre, has downsized the neighbouring site and indicated that the existing office building is out of date and did not make efficient use of floor space for their economic use. So the proposed new use will generate more employment opportunities through both the retained office spaces and with the educational and charity operations from teachers, marketing, fundraising, administration, cleaners, youth workers and security roles to do with the Trust. In fact, the levels in employment provided by this proposal would be much higher than that provided by the previous data centre use, whilst providing a positive benefit for the local community. And secondly, the current Class E use allows for the change of use of the building for other proposals such as a gym or nursery without the need for planning permission due to the change in use class order and permitted development rights. And it should be acknowledged that the building could change to a non-B class use under permitted development, which would be contrary to the current objection and outlines the current policy which seeks to protect these Class B uses out of date A gym or nursery operation would operate with only a handful of staff, whereas we've clearly shown that an education centre will create a significant number of jobs and a much needed value to the local area. We feel that this is a critical point which has not been acknowledged. Thirdly, this request is an exceptional need for the local Muslim community. The Crawley Green Road area has no appropriate facilities for suitable parking for the Muslim community, and it is noted in the committee report that the local Muslim community could travel a further 1.3 miles to another facility across the town. However, this is not practical and would be unsustainable for families who have to commute after school during heavy traffic across the town. And this is at present the issue for the community which this trust serves when using hired spaces, and this severely impacted their ability to function and support the village education of their community. And lastly, it is considered that the proposal complies with the aims and objectives of local planning policy and would continue to provide employment opportunities in Luton. The change of use of 24 Crawley Green Road would address local Muslim educational needs in the catchment that it serves, with sufficient parking and without the need for the demolition or rebuild of a new building. The Trust have spent a considerable amount of time and effort working with the planning department over the last 2 years, undertaking significant technical work required to support the application. And now we strongly request that the committee consider the benefits of this proposal for the local community and approve this planning application. Thank you for listening and considering the proposal.
Yeah, thank you very much, and stay around in case there are any questions. Well, okay, any questions, if there are any, to the applicant's representative? Danib.
Thank you, Chair. Just one question. I know it's available as a educational centre. Would it be available for the community to hire for community purposes?
Sorry, I didn't hear that. I can't hear very well through the phone.
Would the centre be available for the community to hire? So say for adult services or any kind of services they require for the community?
Sorry, I really can't hear. It might be better if I listen on my phone, on my headphones, and then answer on the phone, if that's okay. Okay, 1 second.
Is the centre, or will the centre be available for the community? And the current offices, have they got businesses in them at the moment? Are they actually being used, or are they dormant?
No, the building is currently vacant. Zuri Trust bought the property in July 2021, and it was vacant at that time.
Oh, Councillor Chowdhury first. And then
just wanted to ask, when Zuri Trust purchased the building, they purchased it when it was empty, I assume. But do we know how long the building was empty for before they purchased it?
I don't know the exact date that it became vacant. I believe the last data centre had an application back in 2017 for the demolition of the building.
Councillor Miller, you had a question. I'll come over, Costa.
So can I just confirm the building's been vacant since 2017?
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know the exact date that it became vacant.
Okay, Councillor Miller, now you can have a go.
So you alluded to the fact that it's going to create some employment. Do you know what levels of employment the Trust will create?
So the Trust supports 73 jobs. On site in the evening, there'll be 7 teachers for the education use. And in the day, there'll be 10 office workers on site.
You said 17, did you? 73?
Sorry, in the evening.
That doesn't sound like 73 employees to me.
Like, there's 73 employees which the trust supports, but in the evening to support the education use, there'll be 7 teachers.
Yeah. I'm none the wiser. Can you put your microphone up?
I think what she's trying to say is overall there's 73 members of staff at Zuri, and during the evening where the classes will be held, there'll be 7 teachers working at that time.
Okay. Clive was next.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I live near a school myself, and every morning at dropping off time and every evening at picking up time, it is parking chaos. Now, you're on Crawley Green Road, I gather here, which is one of the main arteries in and out of Luton. Have you any plans on how to manage that parking of children being dropped off in the morning and picked up in the evening without clogging up Crawley Green Road?
Thank you, Councillor. So the education use of the site is an evening use from 5:30 till 8:30. There are 4 classes which will take place in the evening, each with around 20 students. There's parking on site for 26 cars, but the catchment area for the education use is Crawley Green Road itself, so it is expected that many of the users will walk to site.
Francis, you had a question?
Yeah, sorry, I did. It's actually going back to the employment. So point 8 of the report states 28 jobs. So, well, which is the correct figure?
So there are 28 jobs which are supported by the office users, but some of those are part-time. There are 10 full-time users which would be on site in the day.
I think they were the ones that would have the office space, the rented office space. Yeah. Rumi.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to ask one further question. Is there enough demand within the local residents for classes, or will the children for the classes be travelling across from other sides of the town?
So the Zuri Trust community come from Crawley Green Road and that area. At the moment, obviously, they use hired services and venues across Luton, so they are travelling at the moment out of Crawley Green Road to attend classes with the Trust. The idea of this site is that it is in the local catchment.
Okay. No further questions to the applicant's agent? But one more, yeah. Babatunde.
If I may, thank you, Chair. I just want to know if, just to clarify, if you sought any, I don't know which role you played during when this building was being bought by Zuri Trust, and can you confirm if planning application or planning advice for future use was sought with the council?
So DLP became involved after the purchase of the site, so we have only dealt with this change of use for the Religious Education Centre.
Okay. No further questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Questions to the planning officer? Chaudhry.
Just wanted to ask, I know it's in a protected employment zone according to the local plan, but we do understand that that building has been vacant since 2017. Is there any flexibility in actually deviating from the employment zone, and because this potentially would be a mixed use property in terms of what the applicant is proposing. So it's retaining some office space as well as space for educational needs. And it seems that, I mean, it'd be serving the local residents, local community, and it's, I don't think it's sort of fair to say that local community should be sort of travelling into Berry Park, which is about 1.5 miles away. I'm not sure who can answer that.
Yeah, so in the local plat, there are sites that have pretty strong designations, such as Greenbelt, retail frontages, and employment areas are one of these that has a pretty strong designation. And it has a specific policy that goes with that designation. So if the council makes a decision that veers from that particular policy, then it undermines pretty much all of the local plan. So we're in that kind of territory with this application. So I completely get that it was a vacant building and it is bringing, or potentially could bring, a mixed use to the site. But education use isn't something that's allowed through this policy. It's light industrial, office, storage uses that are allowed through the local plan designation. I would go further and say, in fact, members may know that the council is trying to impose an Article 4 directive throughout the borough in certain locations. So this Article 4 directive seeks to protect certain parts of the council from uses that deviate from Class E. So Class E has come in, which allows a multitude of different uses without needing planning permission. And the council has reasoned that we need to protect certain areas within the borough where Class E doesn't have that potential impact. And we've prepared a case which has gone through OSB, it's gone through executive, and it's been approved by the council that we include this site amongst a few other sites where there is protection that it cannot deviate under the allowances of Class E. So Class E allows a flexibility around uses, and we've said we as a council don't think this site is suitable. Now that is before the Secretary of State, and the Secretary of State has told us he wants convincing from Luton Council that we want to do this. And so we are waiting for the Secretary of State to agree with us that we as a council can protect certain sites within the borough where we want to retain commercial uses and employment uses in particular. So if members make a decision to go against the local plan designation for this site, that has to go before the Secretary of State as well. So the Secretary of State will think, well, you know, on the one hand, Luton Borough Council wants to protect its employment areas and its commercial areas, but they've just made a planning decision that goes against it. So there's a few things that members may need to consider before making a decision on this application.
Any questions, further questions to the officer? Abatunde.
Thank you, Chair. To the officer, I want to say, during the course of this, there's about 26 letters writing to say they want this, and just one anonymous against. So why are you strongly against this? Why is the report not favorable to this?
As Sunny's just explained, as officers, our role within the council is to uphold the development plan. And within the development plan, this site is sidelined for employment use, category A employment land. So the principle of changing that use it is unacceptable.
Being used at the current moment anyway for a similar purpose, am I right?
The site at the moment.
Yeah, so what was the site being used for at the moment?
The site was purchased by the applicant in July 2021, and the agent confirmed that they're using it for office admin work associated with the charity at the moment. That's it. They don't have permission for anything else at the moment.
Any further comments? Questions, please. Councillor Stewart.
So I'm just trying to understand the demand for this sort of development. Berry Park, does anybody know how busy Berry Park is at the moment? The educational centre in Berry Park, whether it's full to the brim or whether it's only half occupied?
I think as a councillor from Beach Hill, sorry, Chair, through you.
You can answer the question, please do.
As a councillor for Beach Hill, I'd say all the educational establishments, religious ones, are oversubscribed. It's very, very busy within Berry Park. The traffic going into Berry Park is very bad. I mean, we have standstill in traffic for about 15, 20 minutes at a time. So, yeah, we're oversubscribed in Berry Park.
Then wouldn't it be in the residents' best interest, the residents who should have a say, to approve something like this?
It would be in the interest of the local residents, but however, the site is protected, isn't it, for employment purposes?
The application, is for a change of use, contrary to our local plan.
So I will just add, if it's been vacant since 2017, there is no employment there anyway.
Yeah, I think that the COVID-19 has something to do with.
COVID-19 was after 2017.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but it was the fact that it was vacant.
Sorry, Chair. I think Sarah said it was there was an application or something to pull the building down in 2017. So it's been vacant.
Is that right? Yeah, didn't she? Yes. Yeah. I think it's in the report. Any further questions? Any comments? Okay, I'd just like to make a couple of comments. And Francis, yeah.
Chair, you're far more experienced if you're going to.
Well, I just visiting the site, and I'm familiar with the site. Been there a number of years. It seems a strange place to have this kind of proposed use. You'd think that an education centre would be within the community, like most schools are, rather than somewhere that's away from the community. It's difficult for pedestrians to access. If you're trying to cross the road, there's a convoluted way to cross it. It takes some time because I did it. There's a dual carriageway outside, and I think the only accessibility to this would be travelling by car. It would become the norm. And it is a category A employment site. So with that, Francis, did you say you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I will in that case. We just can't go against the borough plan and drive a coach and horses through it. I think that's the crux of the issue here.
I mean, at least all the other education centres and schools within the Berry Park area are within the community, not somewhere a mile or so away. Okay, there have been no further. Oh, you should have shouted.
I think whilst I'm sympathetic to the community's needs, particularly the Crawley Muslim community who have to travel out, into Bury Park to access the facilities and the resources provided by the Zuri Academy. I think the trouble is we, as councillors, again, can't go against and undermine our own local plan and potentially risk getting the Secretary of State involved. That can get very messy. But with that being said, you know, it is a very difficult decision for us today, and it's not one that's being taken easily. But yeah, I think it is kind of, it outweighs, I think, the issue of undermining our local plan.
Okay, there being no further speakers, then the recommendation is to refuse with the indication of the reasons for refusal within the report. So I'll move refusal.
Seconded, Chair.
Vote now, Matt.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Carr.
With a heavy heart, I agree. For.
Thank
yeah.
you. Councillor Ajisola.
Yeah, 4.
Thank you. Councillor Chowdhury.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Farouk. Councillor Franks.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Mead.
4.
Councillor Miller.
Against.
Councillor Raja.
Against.
Councillor Steer.
4.
And Councillor Taylor.
4.
Application refused, Chair.
So that's been the recommendation has been voted on, and the application has been refused, and the applicants have the right of appeal to the Secretary of State. That being the extent of the business, thank you very much for your attendance tonight. Safe journey home.